I walked into my husband's exclusive yacht club celebration, only to overhear him laughing with his friends. Clara? She'd be serving coffee at some diner if it weren't for me. The woman doesn't even have her own credit card. His new girlfriend, some 26-year-old marketing consultant named Alyssa, smiled and added, "It's sad, really. Completely dependent." I left without saying a word, went straight to my car, and made 3 phone calls. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're a subscriber, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Within an hour, I'd frozen every account he thought was his, locked him out of the penthouse he believed he owned, and canceled the black card he'd been flashing all night. My phone exploded with 47 calls before I even made it home. When he finally reached me, his voice was shaking. The look on his face when he realized who actually owned everything? Absolutely priceless. Let me back up and tell you how I got here. My name is Clara Knowles, and 6 hours ago, I was still pretending to be the grateful wife of James Tanner, San Diego's self-made real estate mogul. You know the type: tailored suits, expensive watch, LinkedIn posts about hustle culture and grinding. The man who never missed an opportunity to tell people he'd built his empire from nothing. That last part was technically true. He had started with nothing. What he conveniently forgot to mention was that I'd given him everything else. We met 12 years ago at a real estate investment seminar. I was 31, he was 34. I just sold my late father's commercial property portfolio, 8 buildings across Southern California that my dad had spent 30 years acquiring. The sale netted me $4.2 million after taxes. I was sitting in that seminar trying to figure out what to do with generational wealth I never asked for, and James was 3 rows ahead, asking the most insightful questions I'd heard all day. He was sharp, ambitious, hungry in a way that made him magnetic. After the seminar, we grabbed coffee, which turned into dinner, which turned into 3 months of late-night conversations about market trends and investment strategies. He had the vision and the drive. I had the capital and the industry connections from my father's network. 6 months later, we were engaged. A year after that, we were married, and I'd wired $3.8 million into our joint venture, Tanner Properties LLC. I kept $400,000 as a safety net, which James thought was cute. Always the cautious one, he'd say, kissing my forehead like I was a child with a piggy bank. Here's what I actually did with that money. I bought a small building in the Gaslamp Quarter under my maiden name through a separate LLC. Rented it out to a tech startup. They're still there, paying me $9,000 a month. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Those first few years were good. Great, even. We were partners. He'd find the properties, I'd analyze the numbers, and we'd make decisions together. My father's old business associates took James's calls because of me. The bank approved our first major construction loan because I personally guaranteed it with my building as collateral. Our attorney, Harold Gain, was my father's best friend. He structured everything to protect us both. Or so I thought. Around year 5, things started shifting. James began introducing himself as the founder of Tanner Properties. Not co-founder. Just founder. At dinner parties, people would congratulate him on his success, and he'd thank them without mentioning me. When I'd bring it up later, he'd say, "Clara, you're too sensitive. Everyone knows you're involved." But they didn't. Because he'd stopped telling them. By year 7, I wasn't attending site visits anymore. "You don't need to come, babe. It's just boring contractor stuff." I wasn't included in investor meetings. "They're all golf buddies. You'd be bored." I wasn't copied on emails. "I don't want to clutter your inbox with business stuff." I was being edited out of my own company. So carefully, so gradually, that I almost didn't notice. What I did notice was the money. Tanner Properties had grown into a $40 million operation. We had 17 properties, a staff of 12, and James had just been featured in San Diego Business Journal as one of the city's top entrepreneurs under 45. The article mentioned his supportive wife exactly once, in the last paragraph. That same week, James sat me down at our kitchen island and told me he thought I should take a step back from the business. "You've done so much already," he said, holding my hand. "You should enjoy life. Travel. Take up painting or something. Let me handle the stress." I should have fought him then. But I was tired. Tired of being tolerated instead of valued. Tired of feeling like I had to justify my presence in a company I'd funded. So I said okay. I stepped back. I became the wife who showed up to events in designer dresses and made small talk while James networked. For 2 years, I played that role perfectly. What James didn't know was that I'd never actually removed myself from the legal structure of the company. Harold had set up the LLC with both of us as equal managing members. Every property was titled in both our names. Every business account required both signatures for major transactions, a safeguard Harold had insisted on, just in case. James had gotten so used to me signing whatever he put in front of me that he stopped checking what I was actually signing. And I'd gotten very good at reading documents carefully before I picked up a pen. 3 months ago, I noticed a charge on our credit card statement. The Pendry Hotel. $847 for a suite we'd never stayed in. When I asked James about it, he barely looked up from his laptop. "Client dinner. You know how it is." I did know how it is. That's why I checked our other statements and found 4 more luxury hotel charges over the past 6 months. Always midweek. Always the kind of boutique hotels you take someone when you're trying to impress them. I hired a private investigator. His name was Gary Miller, a former police detective who specialized in domestic discretion. 3 weeks and $5,000 later, Gary handed me a folder with time-stamped photos of James having lunch with a blonde woman in her 20s. Holding hands across the table. Kissing in the parking lot. Entering hotel rooms together. Her name was Alyssa Bennett. She was a marketing consultant James had hired 6 months ago to refresh our brand. I'd met her exactly once, at an office holiday party where she'd complimented my dress and called me so elegant. I didn't confront James. Not yet. Instead, I called Harold. "Clara," he said warmly when he answered. "It's been too long. How are you?" "I need to know something," I said. "If James and I were to divorce, what happens to Tanner Properties?" There was a long pause. "That depends on several factors. But given the capital structure and ownership documents, you'd be entitled to at least half. Potentially more, if you could prove your initial investment was never properly compensated." "Why? Is everything all right?" "Everything's fine," I lied. "Just curious." After I hung up, I sat in my home office, the small room James had designated for my hobbies, and I started pulling files. Bank statements. Property deeds. Tax returns. The original operating agreement I'd signed 12 years ago. Every email I'd ever sent with ideas, contacts, or analysis. I'd spent 2 years being decorative. It was time to remind my husband who'd actually built his empire. Tonight was supposed to be James's coronation. The San Diego Yacht Club had invited him to speak at their annual investors' dinner, one of those events where wealthy people network over champagne and self-congratulation. He'd told me the dress code was black tie and that I should look the part. I wore a midnight blue gown he'd never seen before. Drove myself in my own car. And walked in ready to hear whatever version of his success story he was telling these days. What I heard was so much worse than I'd imagined. The San Diego Yacht Club sits on Harbor Island with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the marina. Sailboats bobbed gently in their slips, their masts creating a forest of white lines against the sunset. Inside, the dining room glowed with that specific kind of warm lighting that makes everyone look 10 years younger and infinitely more successful. I handed my keys to the valet and walked through the entrance alone. James had texted me earlier saying he needed to arrive early to schmooze, and that I should meet him there. The cocktail hour was in full swing. Men in tuxedos clustered around the bar while their wives compared jewelry and vacation homes. I recognized most of them. This was the same circuit we'd been traveling for years. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The Chambers, who owned a chain of car dealerships. The Hendersons, who'd made their fortune in biotech. Kate and Edgar Smith, venture capitalists who'd been to our house for dinner at least a dozen times. Clara. Kate air-kissed both my cheeks, her champagne breath warm against my face. You look absolutely stunning. Is that Armani? Thank you. Yes, it is. James must be over the moon about tonight, she continued. Edgar was just saying how impressive his growth trajectory has been. From nothing to 40 million in 12 years? That's remarkable. From nothing. Those two words settled in my stomach like stones. He's worked very hard, I said carefully. You both have, I'm sure, Kate added, but her tone suggested she was just being polite. It must be nice to be able to focus on other things now. I saw your Instagram post about that cooking class. Cooking classes. That's what my life had been reduced to in other people's minds. I excused myself and moved toward the bar. From this angle, I could see the whole room reflected in the windows. That's when I spotted James holding court near the north windows, surrounded by 5 or 6 men I recognized as potential investors. His posture was different than when he was with me, more expansive, more confident. And standing just slightly behind him, her hand resting casually on his arm, was Alyssa. She wore a red dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. When James leaned down to hear something she whispered, his hand went naturally to the small of her back. My grip tightened on my glass. Clara Tanner, right? A man I didn't recognize appeared at my elbow. He was probably in his 60s, with the kind of tan that comes from owning a boat. Johnny Whitmore. I don't think we've met, but I've heard wonderful things about your husband's work. Have you? I said, not quite a question. Absolutely. Self-made success stories are increasingly rare these days. Most of the young guys I meet had family money or family connections. But James, he's the real deal. Built everything from scratch. I took a long sip of my gin and tonic. He had some help. Well, sure, a good team makes all the difference. That girl he has working for him, Alyssa, is it? She's sharp as a tack. Great at client relations. Client relations. Is that what we were calling it? If you'll excuse me, I said, setting down my half-finished drink. I need to find the ladies' room. I didn't actually need the bathroom. I needed to not be in that room. But as I walked toward the hallway, I passed close enough to James's circle to hear fragments of conversation. Closed the Coronado deal without breaking a sweat. Brilliant negotiator. And then James's voice, clear and confident. I learned early on that you have to trust your own instincts. Can't let anyone else's doubts slow you down, you know? Even well-meaning people who don't understand the vision. Well-meaning people. Was that me? I kept walking, out onto the deck where the cool air hit my face like a slap. My phone buzzed. A text from James, where are you? Almost time for dinner. Not, are you okay? Just a logistical question. I typed back, deck. Getting air. His response, K, find our table. Name cards. When I walked back inside, the crowd was moving toward the dining room. I found my name card at table 7, not the head table where James would be sitting, but close enough to see him. Alyssa's name was at the head table, 3 seats from James. The lights dimmed as the MC took the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for our annual investors' dinner. Tonight, we're honored to have one of San Diego's brightest young entrepreneurs. I watched James stand, buttoning his tuxedo jacket, flashing that $1 million smile. He didn't just erase me from his success story. He'd convinced himself I was never really part of it. James took the stage like he was born to it. The spotlight caught the silver threads in his dark hair, making him look distinguished rather than aging. Thank you for that generous introduction, he began. 12 years ago, I was sitting in a seminar not unlike this one, trying to figure out how to break into real estate with nothing but ambition and a dream. He paused. I'd worked in property management for 6 years, saved every penny I could, and finally decided it was time to take the leap. My fingernails dug into my palms under the table. Every penny he could. He'd had $30,000 in savings when we met. The first property I acquired was a small duplex in North Park. It needed work, serious work. I spent 3 months doing renovations myself. Plumbing, electrical, drywall. Learning as I went from YouTube videos. That duplex had been purchased with my money. The renovations had been done by a contractor my father's friend recommended. That first property taught me the most important lesson of my career, James continued. Trust your own judgment. There were people who told me I was crazy. That I was over-leveraging myself. That I should play it safe. I'd never said he was crazy. I'd run the numbers and supported his decision. But I knew something they didn't. I could see the potential. And I was willing to bet everything on my vision. The woman next to me leaned over. Your husband is so inspiring. You must be so proud. I managed to smile. He certainly tells a good story. As the company grew, I learned another crucial lesson. Surround yourself with people who enhance your vision, not dilute it. From the head table, Alyssa was watching him adoringly. I brought on a marketing consultant 6 months ago, Alyssa Bennett, and she's been instrumental in taking our brand to the next level. Alyssa gave a modest wave. I noticed she was wearing a bracelet I'd never seen before, white gold with diamonds. Of course, none of this would be possible without the support system at home, James said. My wife Clara has been incredibly understanding about the long hours and the stress. She's given me the space to focus on what I do best. Space. That's what he was calling my erasure. A few people glanced back at my table. I kept my expression neutral. James wrapped up with applause echoing through the room. He returned to his seat, stopping to shake hands along the way. I excused myself and headed back to the deck. Outside, Kate Smith appeared beside me. There you are, she said. I saw you leave. Wanted to make sure you were all right. I'm fine. Just needed some air. She moved to stand beside me at the railing. For a long moment, we both stared out at the water. Clara, she said finally, her voice gentle. How much do you know? My blood went cold. About what? About James and that girl. Alyssa. So it wasn't just me. Other people had noticed. Everything, I said quietly. I know everything. She nodded slowly. I'm sorry. Edgar and I have been debating whether to say something for months. We kept hoping we were wrong. When did you figure it out? The Hendersons' charity gala. 3 months ago. We saw them leave together, and the way he looked at her. Kate trailed off. It wasn't appropriate. 3 months. They'd known for 3 months. Does everyone know? I asked. Kate hesitated, which was answer enough. I need to go, I said. But I wasn't leaving yet. Because as I walked back inside, I heard James's voice again, not on stage this time, but in conversation with a group of men near the bar. I stopped behind a decorative pillar, close enough to hear every word. So the wife doesn't mind you working so closely with your marketing consultant? One of them asked. She's quite attractive. James laughed. Clara? She doesn't really involve herself in business decisions anymore. Honestly, it's better that way. She's too cautious, too risk-averse. If I'd listened to her in the beginning, I'd still be managing apartment buildings. My breath caught. Smart man, another voice chimed in. Women don't understand the kind of risks you have to take to build real wealth. Exactly, James said. Clara's great at the social stuff, hosting dinners, looking good at events. But the actual business? She'd have me playing it safe. No vision, you know. No vision. What about the new girl? Alyssa? She seems sharp. She is. I could hear the smile in James's voice. She gets it. Understands the lifestyle, the ambition. Makes things easier when you have a partner who's on your level intellectually. Partner. He'd called Alyssa his partner. Does Clara know? Someone asked quietly. There was a pause. Then James said, Clara knows what I want her to know. And honestly, I don't think she'd leave even if she figured it out. She's not exactly equipped to make it on her own. No career, no income. She'd be serving coffee at some diner if it weren't for me. The woman doesn't even have her own credit card. The words hit me like physical blows. That's cold, brother, one of them said, laughing. It's reality, James replied. Some women are built for ambition, and some women are built to support it. Clara's the latter. Then Alyssa appeared, handing him champagne. There you are. I was looking for you. Just talking business, James said, his hand going to her waist. Well, wrap it up, she said, smiling at the other men. I need to steal him away. As they walked away together, I heard Alyssa say, she left early, by the way. Your wife. Did she? James didn't sound concerned. Probably tired. These things bore her. It's sad, really, Alyssa said. Being completely dependent on someone else. I can't imagine living like that. That's why I'm with you, James said, and I watched him kiss her temple. You're nothing like her. Something inside me snapped. I pulled out my phone and took a photo. James and Alyssa, his arm around her waist, walking through the yacht club like a couple. Then I turned and walked to the parking lot. My hands were shaking as I sat in my car. I stared at that photo, listening to the blood rushing in my ears. The woman doesn't even have her own credit card. She'd be serving coffee at some diner if it weren't for me. No vision. I opened my banking app. The one James didn't know I had. My gas lamp quarter building, $2.1 million current value. My personal investment account, $847,000. My separate savings account, $156,000. The trust fund my father had set up that James never knew existed, $1.3 million. Total liquid assets under my sole control, $4.4 million. I sat there staring at those numbers. Then I started making calls. First call, Harold Gain. Clara? It's late. Is everything all right? I need you to do something tonight. Right now. Can you access the business accounts remotely? I have emergency access for all accounts I manage. Why? I'm about to send you a list of instructions. Follow them exactly. Don't call James. Don't warn him. Don't ask questions. Can you do that for me? There was a long pause. Your father would have wanted me to protect you. Then protect me. Consider it done. Second call, my bank. This is Clara Knowles. I need to speak to someone about freezing joint accounts. Third call, our property management company. This is Clara Tanner. I need to implement the emergency protocol. Yes, tonight. All properties. Fourth call, our credit card company. I need to report cards as lost or stolen. All of them. By the time I finished, 23 minutes had passed. 23 minutes to dismantle 12 years of my husband's carefully constructed kingdom. My phone immediately started buzzing. James calling. I declined it. He called again. And again. On the fourth call, I answered. What the hell is going on? His voice was panicked. I just tried to close out my bar tab and my card was declined. All of them. And Harold just sent me some insane email. I know about Alyssa, I said calmly. Silence. Clara. I know everything, James. The hotels. The dinners. The bracelet. I know you're planning to divorce me. I know you told those men tonight that I'd be serving coffee at a diner without you. That I have no vision. That I don't have my own credit card. You were listening. Here's what else you don't know. That first duplex? I paid for it. Every single property was purchased with my capital, my connections, or my guarantees. And Harold? He was my father's best friend. He's been protecting my interests this entire time. What did you do? What I should have done years ago. I took back what's mine. The accounts are frozen. The credit cards are cancelled. The properties are locked. As of 23 minutes ago, you don't have access to a single dollar that I provided. You can't do this. I already did. See you at home, James. I hung up. My phone showed 47 missed calls by the time I pulled into our driveway. The look on his face when he finally understood who actually owned everything? It was going to be absolutely priceless. I didn't go inside right away. Instead, I sat in my car, surrounded by the luxury his self-made success had bought. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Clara, this is insane. You're making a huge mistake. We need to talk like adults. I'm coming home. That last one made me laugh. Fix this. Like I was a problem that needed solving. I pulled out the folder Gary had given me. Photos of James and Alyssa at restaurants, hotels, Balboa Park. In every photo, he looked happy. Alive in a way I hadn't seen in years. There was a note on the last page. Hotel charges total $4,340. Restaurants $2,100. Jewelry purchase at Tiffany's, $12,750. You paid for your own replacement. The garage door opened. James's Range Rover squealed into the driveway. He jumped out, still in his tuxedo, bow tie undone. Clara. He was breathless. What the hell did you do? I think the question is, what did you do, James? This is about Alyssa. It's not what you think. Really? What do I think? I don't know. That I'm having an affair? Clara, you're overreacting. To what? To you telling a room full of people that I'd be serving coffee without you? That I have no vision? That I'm not on your intellectual level? His face went pale. You heard that. I heard everything. Including the part where you called Alyssa your partner. Where you told them you're planning to divorce me. Where you laughed about how I don't even have my own credit card. It was just talk. Yes, you did. I stepped closer. You meant every word. And you know what? You were right about one thing. I don't have a credit card in your name. I have my own. Connected to my own accounts. With my own money. I pulled out my phone and showed him my banking app. Watched his eyes widen. That's impossible. You don't have $4.4 million. In accounts you've never seen. That building in the Gaslamp Quarter you said was a waste? It's worth $2.1 million now. Generates $9,000 a month. All mine. James stared at the screen. But you said you only kept $400,000. I lied. I took the inheritance money, bought that building under my maiden name, and I've been building my own portfolio ever since. While you were spending mine. That's not fair. We built this together. Did we, James? Because earlier you told those investors that I just bankrolled the first property and everything after that was you. So which is it? He slumped against his car. I made mistakes. I got caught up in, I don't know. But we can fix this. I'll end things with Alyssa. I'll make this right. You can't make this right. Because it's not just about Alyssa. It's about 12 years of you erasing me. It's about you treating me like a burden instead of the person who made everything possible. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please don't destroy everything we've built. I'm not destroying anything. I'm taking back what was always mine. My phone buzzed with a text from Harold. Everything is locked down. He can't access anything without your signature. I showed James the message. You can't do this, he said weakly. The business will collapse. We have employees. Contractors. Then I suggest you figure it out. You're the self-made man, right? Prove it. I walked toward the house. Where are you going? To bed. In the master suite. Which is in a house that's titled in my name. My father insisted on it when we bought this place. The guest house is available. Or you could stay with Alyssa. I walked into the house and locked the door. Through the window, I could see James still standing in the garage, phone in hand, trying to figure out who could fix this. But I was done being reasonable. Done being accommodating. Done being invisible. I poured myself a glass of wine, a $400 Bordeaux James had been saving, and sat in my home office. Then I started making a list of everything I needed to do Monday morning. First, file for divorce. Second, remove James from all property titles. Third, call a business attorney about dissolving Tanner Properties. Fourth, change every password, every PIN, every security question. Fifth, live my own life. I woke up at 6 a.m. with new purpose. The bed beside me was empty. I didn't know where James had slept, and I didn't care. I made real coffee and sat at the island with my laptop. My email inbox had exploded, 17 messages from James, each more desperate than the last. I deleted them all. There were also 3 emails from Harold. 11:47 p.m., all joint accounts frozen. Property access restricted. 2:15 a.m., reviewed all documentation. Your position is stronger than I thought. Call me. 5:32 a.m., James tried to reach me. I did not answer. Standing by. I called Harold at 7. Clara. I've been up since 3 reviewing everything. I'm listening. The original operating agreement lists you as 50% managing member. Every property deed has both names. Every major loan has your personal guarantee. And your initial $3.8 million was never documented as a loan or equity investment. It's just listed as startup capital. What does that mean? It means you could argue James has been operating with your money and treating it as his own. In a divorce, that $3.8 million would be your separate property. You'd get it back off the top. I set down my coffee. How much is Tanner Properties worth? Approximately $22 million in net equity. So I'd get my $3.8 million back, plus half of the remaining $18.2? Potentially more than half. I'd estimate $14 to $16 million total. Add that to my existing $4.4 million, and I was looking at close to $20 million. There's something else, Harold continued. The corporate credit card statements show hotels, restaurants, jewelry stores. If James used company funds for an affair, that's misappropriation. It strengthens your position. How soon can we file? Monday afternoon. After hanging up, I made my second call. My father's old business partner, Jonathan Wheeler. Clara Knowles. I haven't heard from you in years. I'm divorcing my husband and I need advice on restructuring a real estate portfolio. Brief pause. Tell me everything. I spent 40 minutes walking him through the situation. Your father never liked James, Jonathan said finally. Thought he was too slick. But he wanted you to be happy. Here's what I'm thinking, you don't want to just take a settlement and walk away. You want to run this portfolio yourself. I hadn't articulated it yet, but yes. That's exactly what I wanted. I can help you with that. We'll restructure the business, buy out James's interest or force a sale and let you reacquire through a new entity. What about the employees? The ongoing projects? We'll protect them. This isn't about destruction. It's about taking back control. After we hung up, I spent 2 hours documenting everything. Emails with property analyses James presented as his own work. Notes from meetings where I did the negotiations. Every contribution I'd made that had been systematically erased. I photographed everything. By 9:30, I'd created a comprehensive digital record of 12 years of contributions. My phone rang. James. This time, I answered. Clara, thank God. We need to talk. I'm filing for divorce on Monday. Silence. You can't be serious. Harold is drawing up papers now. You'll be served early next week. Over one mistake. Over Alyssa? I told you I'll end it. This isn't about Alyssa. It's about you spending 12 years treating me like a burden while building an empire with my money and my work. And last night, you told a room full of people I'd be serving coffee without you. I was drunk. I didn't mean. Yes, you did. That's how you see me. And I'm done being seen that way. What about the business? We have a closing Wednesday. Construction loan due Friday. Payroll Monday. If you don't unfreeze accounts, everything could collapse. Then figure out alternative financing. You're the self-made visionary, right? Make it work. I can't without capital. Actually, I won't. Because I'm going to buy out your interest. Or force a sale and reacquire everything through a new entity. Either way, you're out. You can't afford that. I have $4.4 million in liquid assets you didn't know about. Plus $14 to $16 million from the divorce settlement. And I have Jonathan Wheeler backing me. Remember him? My father's partner? The one who taught me everything about real estate? I could hear him calculating, realizing. This is insane. No, James. I've found my mind. There's a difference. I hung up. My phone showed 73 missed calls by the time I finished my second cup of coffee. I turned it off and went for a run. The process server delivered James's divorce papers Tuesday morning at 9:15. Harold texted, papers served at office. He was with clients. Not his best moment. I was in a Little Italy coffee shop reviewing renovation plans. I smiled and went back to my blueprints. James called 17 times in the next hour. At 10:30, Harold called. He wants to meet. Today. I told him my office at 2 p.m. I'll be there. You don't have to agree to anything. I can do that. I arrived at Harold's office at 1:45. Harold had coffee waiting. You ready? What should I expect? He'll try to make you feel guilty. He'll probably cry. He might get angry. Don't engage. Let me handle it. James arrived exactly at 2. When he walked through the door, I barely recognized him. He'd aged a decade in 3 days. Bloodshot eyes, uncombed hair, wrinkled shirt. He looked like he'd been sleeping in his car. Clara. His voice cracked. Thank you for meeting. I didn't respond. He sat down. Can we talk alone? No, Harold said. Anything you say to Clara, you say in front of me. James's jaw tightened. Fine. Clara, this has gone too far. I understand you're angry, and you have every right. But what you're doing will destroy everything we've built. Everything you've built, I corrected. Isn't that what you told those investors? He winced. I was being an idiot. Trying to impress people. You meant it. You've been meaning it for years. That's not fair. Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, you appreciated my money but not me. My connections but not my input. Having a wife who looked good but didn't ask questions. James ran his hands through his hair. What do you want? An apology? I'm sorry. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll make Alyssa resign. I'll put your name on everything. Just unfreeze the accounts. No. We have employees. Contractors who'll go unpaid. Clients who'll sue. You're hurting innocent people. I pulled out Gary's folder and placed it on Harold's desk. Do you know what this is? James stared but didn't answer. Photos of you and Alyssa. Hotels. Restaurants. Balboa Park. Time stamped. I opened it. This one? Fairmont Grand Del March. March 15th. Same day you told me you had to work late. His face went pale. And this? I pulled out the credit card statement. A $12,750 charge at Tiffany's. The bracelet for Alyssa. Paid for with our business account. I paid for you to buy jewelry for your mistress. Clara. I'm not finished. I pulled out another document. Email correspondence with a La Jolla real estate agent. You've been looking at condos. 3 to 5 million. Ocean views. Were you planning to buy one for Alyssa? James looked at Harold. Did you illegally access my emails? Let's stay focused, Harold said calmly. My client has substantial evidence of an ongoing affair and misappropriation of marital assets. You were planning to leave me, I said, emotion creeping into my voice. Not sadness, anger. Wait until your big deal closed, secure financing, then serve me papers. Probably offer some settlement that was a fraction of what I'm entitled to. How am I doing? James slumped. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Long silence. Finally, I felt stuck. Like I'd outgrown us. Alyssa made me feel young again. Exciting. And you'd become so cautious. I needed someone who understood ambition. I understood ambition fine. I just understood risk management too. Every time I tried to make sure we were making smart decisions, you treated it like I was holding you back. But I was protecting us. Protecting the investments I'd made. Investments you made, he repeated bitterly. That's what this comes down to. You think you own everything because you wrote some checks 12 years ago. I don't think I own everything. I know exactly what I own. I turned to Harold. Harold handed me a document. Total value of all properties, $31 million. Outstanding debt, $9 million. Net equity, $22 million. Clara's initial investment, adjusted, $5.2 million. That comes off the top. James's eyes widened. That's insane. After Clara's investment is returned, Harold continued, the remaining $16.8 million would be divided based on contribution. Given Clara's documented involvement plus the misappropriation of funds, I estimate she's entitled to approximately 65% of remaining equity. I watched James do the math. His face went gray. You'd be taking almost $16 million. That would leave me with $6 million tied up in properties. Welcome to consequences, I said. I can't run the business with that. I'd have to sell properties, lay off staff. Or, Harold interjected, Clara could buy out your remaining interest and you walk away with liquid cash. Start fresh. Isn't that what you wanted? James looked at me with something between desperation and hatred. You'd really erase me from everything we built? You erased me first, James. I'm just making it official. He stood abruptly, chair scraping. I made one mistake. One mistake. I stood too, taller in my heels. You had an affair for over a year. Spent $30,000 of our money on her. Told a room full of people I'd be serving coffee without you. Erased me from company history. Planned to divorce me and take everything. That's not one mistake. That's a pattern. Fine. His voice went cold. You want to destroy what we built? Go ahead. But don't think you can run that business without me. You don't have the connections, the reputation, the relationships. You're going to crash and burn. I won't need to, I said calmly. I already have Jonathan Wheeler helping me restructure. Remember him? My father's partner? The one who actually taught me real estate. James's face went from cold to shocked. Jonathan? He agreed to work with you? He's been waiting 12 years for me to stop letting you take credit for my work. You've been planning this. The frozen accounts, the divorce, the buyout. No. I've been documenting it. I didn't know I'd need this until Saturday when I heard you tell those men who you think I am. That's when I decided to show you who I actually am. Harold cleared his throat. James, I recommend you retain counsel immediately. We can work out property division through mediation or court. But either way, this marriage is over. The only question is whether you walk away with something or nothing. James looked at me one more time. I loved you, he said quietly. No, you didn't. You loved what I could do for you. There's a difference. He walked out without another word. Through the window, I watched him drive away. You okay? Harold asked. I'm perfect, I said. And I meant it. The drive home felt different. The same streets, the same route, but everything looked sharper. More real. When I pulled into the driveway, James's Range Rover was there. He'd beaten me home. I found him in the living room with 2 suitcases by the door. He looked up when I walked in, eyes red from crying. I'm just getting my things. I'll be out in an hour. Okay. I walked past him to the kitchen. Poured water. My hands were steady. That's it, he called. Just okay? No final speech? I returned to the doorway. What would be the point? You already know what you did. Me listing it won't change anything. He laughed, but it sounded broken. You're really going through with this? Yes. He walked to the window. I called my brother. Asked if I could stay with him. He said yes, but I could hear the judgment. Everyone's going to take your side. The wronged wife. You'll be the hero. I don't want to be the hero. I just want what's mine. Like I didn't contribute anything. Like 12 years meant nothing. I'm not saying you didn't contribute anything. I'm saying you took credit for everything while convincing everyone I contributed nothing. There's a difference. He grabbed his suitcases. At the door, he paused. Alyssa ended things, by the way. Said she didn't sign up for this drama. Turns out she loved the successful businessman, not the guy with frozen accounts. I'm sorry you're in pain. I'm not sorry about the consequences. There's a difference. He shook his head and left. I heard his car fade into the distance. I walked through the house, room by room. Photos would come down. His office cleared. His closet emptied. Every trace removed. I sat at my kitchen island with my laptop. Email to Harold, James removed his belongings. Please proceed with mediation. I want this finalized within 90 days. Email to Jonathan, ready to move forward. Let's schedule a meeting for Noel's property group. Email to Kate Smith, you were right to tell me. Thank you. Let's have coffee soon. Email to Jennifer at InnovateSoft, let's move forward with the 5-year lease on both floors. By the time I finished my wine, I'd sent 11 emails. Each one felt like closing a door and opening a window. That night, I slept in my bedroom for the first time as myself. Clara Knowles. Property owner. Businesswoman. Woman who knew exactly what she was worth. The next morning, I woke at 6 and went for a run. The same route, but it felt lighter. When I got back, Harold had texted, James's attorney contacted me. He wants to settle. Willing to accept buyout terms. Wants to expedite. I replied, good. Let's get this done. Over the next 6 weeks, everything went through attorneys. Property valuations. Asset divisions. Debt assignments. Harold had been right. My initial investment came to $5.2 million off the top. The remaining equity was divided 60-40 in my favor. I walked away with $15.3 million, some in property, some in cash. James got $6.7 million and his freedom. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday morning in late August. I sat in the courthouse wearing my navy suit and signed papers that officially ended my marriage. James sat across the courtroom with his attorney. We didn't make eye contact. When the judge declared us divorced, I felt nothing. Just quiet completion. Outside, Harold shook my hand. Your father would be proud. I hope so. What's next? I looked at the cloudless San Diego sky. I'm going to build something. Something that's entirely mine. Something no one can take credit for but me. I went home and changed into jeans. Then I drove to my Gaslamp Quarter building and spent 3 hours planning renovations. Jennifer from InnovateSoft saw me and invited me in for coffee. I heard about your divorce. I think it's incredibly brave. Starting over. Taking control. Thank you. Though it doesn't feel like starting over. It feels like finally starting period. I left a toxic partnership 3 years ago to start InnovateSoft. Best decision ever. Scary as hell, but worth it. Any advice? Yeah. Don't try to prove anyone wrong. Just prove yourself right. The rest takes care of itself. I thought about that driving home. Proving myself right. Not spending energy on James or anyone who doubted me. Just building something good. That evening, I designed business cards. Clara Knowles, founder and CEO. Simple. True. Mine. I ordered 500 cards and scheduled meetings with contractors, architects, investors. By week's end, I had a business plan and 3 properties I was considering. 1 month after my divorce, I closed on a small apartment building in Normal Heights. 12 units, solid bones. I paid cash. 2 months after, I hired my first employee. A young woman named Avril Martinez, smart, hungry, transparent about her ambitions. Why did you choose me? She asked on her first day. I'm straight out of business school. Because you're hungry and honest. And because I remember what it's like to be underestimated. I'm not going to do that to you. 3 months after my divorce, Kate called about a charity gala. Same crowd as the yacht club. James will probably be there. Are you okay with that? I'm fine. But I'm not going as someone's guest. I'm buying a table. Knowles Property Group is sponsoring. Look at you. Businesswoman of the Year. Not yet. But maybe someday. 6 months after my divorce, I was in a North Park coffee shop when I saw him. James walked in with a woman I didn't recognize, brunette, late 30s, designer handbag. Not Alyssa. Someone new. They were laughing, and he had his hand on the small of her back in that familiar way. I was at my corner table with my laptop, reviewing architectural plans for a mixed-use building in University Heights. He didn't see me at first. But when he turned to scan for seating, our eyes met. I watched the color drain from his face. I smiled and gave him a small wave. Not hostile, not friendly. Just acknowledgement. He said something to his companion and walked over. Clara. I didn't expect to see you here. I come here every Thursday morning. Same table, same time. Have been for 3 months. He shifted his weight. You look good. Different. Thank you. I did look different. Shorter hair, dressed for myself. I'd also lost 15 pounds from actually having time to exercise. I heard about your new company. Knowles Property Group. News travels fast. Jonathan Wheeler mentioned it at a meeting. Said you're doing well. Bought 3 properties in 6 months. 4, actually. I closed on University Heights yesterday. I gestured to my laptop. James glanced at the screen. That's the Moreno building. I looked at that 2 years ago. Decided it was too much work. It is a lot of work. But the location is perfect, and the bones are solid. Sometimes difficult projects are the most rewarding. He nodded slowly. I'm glad you're doing well. I know things ended badly, but I never wanted you to fail. I know you didn't. You just didn't think I could succeed without you. There's a difference. His companion called his name, holding up their drinks. I should go. But Clara? For what it's worth, I'm sorry. For all of it. I know. I've moved on, James. I hope you can too. He walked away, and I watched him leave with his new girlfriend. Different car, smaller and less flashy. My phone buzzed. Avril, contractor can meet at 2 p.m. Should I confirm? I typed back, confirmed. I'll meet you at 1:45. I finished my coffee, closed my laptop, walked out into the sunshine. My new Audi, midnight blue like I'd always wanted, was parked on the street. As I drove to my office, I realized seeing James hadn't made me angry or sad. It had been nothing. A moment with someone I used to know. I'd moved on. Really, truly moved on. And that felt better than any revenge ever could. 14 months after my divorce, I stood before 200 people at the San Diego Real Estate Investment Association's annual conference. My name is Clara Knowles, and I'm the founder and CEO of Knowles Property Group. 18 months ago, I didn't exist, at least not professionally. I was someone's wife. Someone's silent partner. Someone's financial backer who got written out of the story. The audience listened. Today, I own 7 properties valued at approximately $28 million. I employ 6 people. And I'm here to tell you it's never too late to reclaim your own narrative. After my presentation, people lined up. Investors discussing partnerships. Young women asking how I'd found the courage. Reporters requesting interviews. One woman stood out. Late 40s, well-dressed, tired eyes. My husband keeps telling me I don't understand the business. That I should focus on supporting his vision. But I funded his first 3 properties. I found the deals. I negotiated contracts. And now he acts like I'm just decoration. I handed her my card. Call me. Let's have coffee. I know a good attorney too. She took it with shaking hands. Thank you. I thought I was going crazy. You're not crazy. You're just ready to wake up. That evening, Jonathan Wheeler took me to dinner at a waterfront restaurant in Coronado. Your father would have loved seeing you like this, Jonathan said. Confident. Successful. Entirely yourself. I wish he'd lived to see it. He knew you had it in you. About 5 years into your marriage, he came to me and said, Jonathan, I think my son-in-law is slowly erasing my daughter. I asked what he wanted to do, and he said, nothing yet. She has to figure it out herself. My throat tightened. He knew. He suspected. And he made sure all the legal documents protected you. That's why Harold structured everything the way he did. Your father was playing the long game. I'm going to make him proud. You already have. 2 weeks later, San Diego Business Journal published a feature, Clara Knowles, Building an Empire on Her Own Terms. The photo showed me in front of my University Heights property, confident smile. The article detailed my story, the investment, the erasure, the affair, the decision to take back control. It mentioned Tanner Properties only in passing. My phone exploded. Former clients reached out. Women I'd never met sent thanks. 3 podcasts requested interviews. Buried in the messages was one from Alyssa. I saw the article. I owe you an apology. What I did was wrong. For what it's worth, James and I didn't last. He's already with someone new. I hope you're happy. You deserve it. I read it twice, then deleted it without responding. Some apologies come too late to matter. 2 years after my divorce, I hosted the grand opening of my 8th property, a renovated historic building in Little Italy converted into upscale lofts. Over 300 people attended. Investors, tenants, city council members, journalists filled the space, admiring exposed brick and original hardwood floors I'd painstakingly restored. Avril, now my director of acquisitions, clinked her glass. "I'd like to introduce the woman who made this possible, Clara Knowles." The applause was genuine. I stood and looked out at faces that saw me. Really saw me. Thank you all for being here. This building represents more than renovation. It represents reclamation. 2 years ago, I sat in a parking lot and made phone calls that changed my life. I took back what was mine, not out of revenge, but necessity. Because I'd forgotten who I was. I paused, seeing women nodding. If you're in a situation where you've disappeared into someone else's story, where your contributions have been erased, where you're told you can't survive without someone who couldn't have survived without you, I want you to know something. You're stronger than you think. You're smarter than they've told you. And you're capable of building something extraordinary on your own terms. After speeches ended, I stepped onto the rooftop terrace. The San Diego skyline glittered in twilight. I could hear the city below, vibrant, alive, full of possibility. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Congratulations on your success. You were right about everything. James." Reaching out after 2 years. I looked at the message for a long moment, then typed, "Thanks." Then I blocked the number. I didn't need his validation. Didn't need his apology or acknowledgement. I'd spent 2 years building a life that didn't require his approval. I deleted the conversation and slipped my phone away. Below, my guests celebrated in the building I'd restored with my money, my vision, my work. No one could take credit for this but me. I smiled at the city lights and whispered to no one in particular, "Look at me now." The woman who'd walked into that yacht club party 2 years ago would have been terrified of this moment. Would have second-guessed herself, apologized for her success, minimized her achievements. But that woman was gone. In her place stood someone who knew exactly what she was worth. Someone who'd taken back her power, her identity, her future. Someone who'd proven, not to James, not to anyone else, but to herself, that she was capable of extraordinary things. I pulled out my phone one more time and opened my notes app. At the top of a blank page, I wrote, "Year 3 goals, Knowles Property Group." Below it, I listed 10 ambitious targets. Property acquisitions. Revenue growth. Team expansion. Community impact initiatives. James had once told those investors I had no vision. He'd been wrong. I had vision. I'd always had it. I just hadn't been given the space to execute it. Now I had all the space in the world. I saved the note, pocketed my phone, and returned to my party. To my company. To my life. The life I'd built. The life I deserved. The life that was entirely, unapologetically mine. And standing there, surrounded by people who valued me for exactly who I was, I realized something profound. The best revenge isn't destruction. It's becoming so successful, so fulfilled, so completely yourself that the person who tried to diminish you becomes completely irrelevant to your story. James would always be a chapter in my past. But I was writing a whole new book. And this time, I was the only author. 5 years after that night at the yacht club, I stood in my corner office on the 20th floor of a building I'd purchased and renovated myself. Knowles Property Group now managed 14 properties across Southern California, employed 23 people, and had just closed a deal that would make me San Diego's first female real estate developer to break the $100 million portfolio mark. My phone buzzed. A text from Avril, who was now my VP of Operations. Board meeting in 10. The investors loved your presentation. I smiled and gathered my materials. As I walked to the conference room, I passed the wall where we displayed our company timeline. Photos chronicled our growth, the first property acquisition, our team at 5 employees, the ribbon cutting at Little Italy, last year's holiday party. But the photo that always caught my eye was the first one. A simple headshot of me taken 2 weeks after my divorce was finalized. Short hair, confident smile, eyes that had finally learned to see clearly. Below it, a quote I'd chosen. She remembered who she was and the game changed. I didn't know who'd originally said it. But I knew it was true. In the conference room, my team was already assembled. Avril, Jennifer from InnovateSoft, who'd become a close friend and occasional business partner, 3 junior associates I'd hired fresh out of college, and Jonathan Wheeler, who still advised me despite being officially retired. Before we start, Jonathan said, raising his coffee cup, I'd like to propose a toast. 5 years ago, Clara walked into my office and asked for help restructuring a portfolio. Today, she's built something her father would have been incredibly proud of. To Clara, and to Knowles Property Group. To Clara, everyone echoed. I felt emotion rising in my throat but pushed it down. There would be time for sentiment later. Right now, we had work to do. Thank you, I said simply. Now, let's talk about the Oceanside project. Later that evening, I drove home to the house that had always been mine, though it had taken me years to truly claim it. I'd renovated extensively, new kitchen, updated master suite, a home office that was actually designed for serious work rather than hobbies. The photos of James were long gone, replaced by images of my properties, my team, places I'd traveled to on my own terms. I poured myself a glass of wine and stepped onto my back patio. The sun was setting over San Diego, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. My phone rang. My sister Sarah. Hey, I answered. What's up? Just calling to say congratulations. I saw the Business Journal article about the $100 million milestone. Clara, I'm so proud of you. Thanks, Sarah. You know, she said, her voice turning thoughtful, I was thinking about that night at the yacht club. 5 years ago. When everything fell apart. When everything fell into place, I corrected gently. Yeah, she laughed. I guess that's more accurate. It didn't look like it at the time, but you were right. You needed that push to remember who you were. After we hung up, I sat in the fading light and thought about that night. The humiliation, the betrayal, the moment when everything I thought I knew shattered. It had been the worst night of my life. It had also been the beginning of the best years of my life. My phone buzzed one final time. An email notification from a woman I didn't know. Dear Ms. Knowles, I attended your presentation at the SDREI conference last year. At the time, I was trapped in a marriage where my contributions were invisible and my worth was questioned daily. Your story gave me the courage to leave, rebuild, and reclaim my identity. I wanted you to know that 1 year later, I've started my own consulting firm and I'm thriving. Thank you for showing me it was possible. Rachel. I read the email 3 times, then saved it in a folder I kept labeled, Why This Matters. Because that's what it was all about. Not revenge. Not proving James wrong. Not even proving myself right. It was about showing other women what was possible. About being the example I wish I'd had when I was sitting in that parking lot, terrified and furious and determined. It was about remembering, and helping others remember, that we're never as powerless as someone else wants us to believe. I raised my wine glass to the sunset and whispered the words I'd whispered 1,000 times over the past 5 years. Look at me now. And then I added something new. Thank you, James. For underestimating me so completely that I had no choice but to prove you wrong. For erasing me so thoroughly that I had to rewrite my own story. For pushing me so far that the only direction left was up. I meant it. Not because I'd forgiven him. Not because I wanted him back in my life in any capacity. But because his betrayal had been the catalyst for my transformation. His cruelty had forced me to find my strength. His dismissal had pushed me to prove my worth, not to him, but to myself. He'd tried to make me smaller. Instead, he'd shown me just how vast I could become. The sun dipped below the horizon, and I finished my wine. Tomorrow, there would be more deals to close, more properties to acquire, more women to mentor, more empire to build. But tonight, I simply existed in the life I'd created. The life where I was the protagonist, the author, the architect. The life where I was finally, completely, unapologetically myself. And it was more than enough. It was everything. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.